A man runs through the fog of a French port town clutching a wooden crate wrapped in straw. Inside it is not gold, it is glass. And glass in the year 1665 is worth killing over. His breath fogs in the cold air. Behind him, footsteps on wet cobblestone, or maybe it is only rain dripping off a tavern roof. He does not look back. He has been told that men from Venice do not forgive what he has done. He has taken something out of a locked workshop on an island where, by law, he was never supposed to leave, and he has carried it, piece by fragile piece, into the service of a French king who wants nothing more in the world than to see his own face reflected in perfect, silver-bright clarity. We will return to this man, but to understand how a simple crate of glass could become a death sentence, we do not need to rewind 3 days, we need to rewind almost 3,000 years. Long before glass, before bronze, before anyone thought to polish metal into a smooth disc, human beings were already obsessed with seeing themselves. Archaeologists working at Çatalhöyük in central Anatolia, a Neolithic settlement discovered by British archaeologist James Millart in 1958, and excavated starting in 1961, uncovered polished obsidian discs dated to roughly 6000 BCE. Obsidian is volcanic glass, black and glassy, and when ground flat and buffed, it throws back a dim, smoky reflection. It is, as far as the archaeological record shows, humanity's oldest known mirror. Not silver, not glass. Volcanic rock polished by hand in a village that predates the wheel. Centuries later, in ancient Egypt, mirrors take a new form, polished bronze discs, often with a handle shaped like a lotus or a goddess, dated as early as 2900 BCE according to pieces held in museum collections including the Metropolitan Museum of Art. These were not household trinkets. In Egyptian belief, the mirror carried a kind of divine light. Some Egyptologists note that the word for mirror in Egyptian, ankh, echoes the symbol for life itself, though the exact linguistic connection is debated among specialists. To hold a mirror was to hold a small piece of the sun. Here is where the first open thread begins. Because bronze and obsidian mirrors, for all their meaning, had a fatal flaw, they were dim, metal tarnishes, stone scatters light. For thousands of years, humanity could see only a ghost of itself. The clear, bright reflection we take for granted today, the one where you can see your own eyelashes, that had to be invented. And the people who figured out how to do it would guard the secret so fiercely that it would cost lives. That invention took shape on a small lagoon island near Venice. In the year 1291, records from the Venetian Republic show the city's Great Council ordered every glass-making furnace moved out of the city center and onto the island of Murano. The official reason given was fire safety. Venice was built of wood, and glass furnaces burned day and night. But historians who study Venetian trade law note a second, quieter motive: control. On an island, glassmakers could be watched, their techniques could be contained, their knowledge could be owned by the state. By the mid-1400s, Murano's furnaces had produced something remarkable: cristallo, a glass so clear it was compared to rock crystal. Venetian tradition credits the Barovier family, and specifically a glassmaker named Angelo Barovier, with perfecting this formula in the 15th century, though, as with much of early glassmaking history, exact attribution is disputed among historians and partly preserved through guild legend rather than precise documentation. What is not disputed is the result. For the first time, when this glass was backed with a thin layer of metal, it produced a reflection sharp enough to show pores in skin, threads in fabric, the true color of a jewel. And now the second tier of escalation begins, because a government that controls a miracle does not share it freely. Venetian law, as recorded in the statutes of the Republic, forbade glassmakers from leaving Murano without official permission. Those who fled and refused to return could be sentenced in absentia, and some surviving records describe punishments including confiscation of property for defectors' families remaining in Venice. Murano's mirrors became the most expensive decorative object in Europe. Ambassadors' letters and household inventories from the 1500s and 1600s show a large Venetian mirror could cost more than a painting by a well-known master of the period. To own one was to display, quite literally, that you could afford to see yourself. But here is the open thread that will not stay closed for long. Kings do not like needing anyone's permission for anything, least of all a foreign republic's monopoly on vanity. By the 1660s, the court of Louis XIV of France was spending, by some contemporary estimates cited by economic historians of the period, a considerable share of its luxury imports on Venetian mirrors and mirror glass. Louis wanted mirrors the way earlier kings wanted gold mines. And his finance minister, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, was not a man inclined to simply keep paying Venice's price. In 1665, according to French royal records, Colbert established the Manufacture Royale de Glace de Miroir, a royal mirror-making enterprise, with the explicit goal of breaking Venice's grip on the industry. To do it, France needed Murano's craftsmen, and Murano's craftsmen were, by law, not supposed to leave. This is where our man in the fog returns. Contemporary French administrative correspondence and later historical accounts describe Colbert recruiting Venetian mirror makers, offering them money, protection, and positions in France, an offer that, under Venetian law, made them fugitives the moment they accepted it. Several accounts, repeated across generations of popular history, claim that Venice responded by sending agents to silence the defectors, and that at least a few of the Murano workers who fled to France died under suspicious or unexplained circumstances shortly after their arrival. Now we arrive at the turn, the moment where the story we think we are hearing changes shape. Historians who specialize in Venetian archives are careful here, and it matters that we are careful too. The image of Venetian assassins hunting down mirror makers across Europe is one of the most repeated stories in the folklore of glassmaking. Legend has it that knives followed defectors all the way to Paris. But surviving Venetian state records do not offer confirmed, documented cases of an execution actually carried out on foreign soil for this specific offense. What the records do confirm is the legal framework, the decrees, the threats, the punishments against defectors' property and families. The fear was absolutely real and grounded in real law. Whether Venice's knives ever actually found their targets in Paris is something historians still debate, treating the assassination stories as a widely circulated legend layered on top of a documented legal terror. And that reframes everything we just heard. The crisis was real. The danger was real enough that men risked their lives to cross a border with glass hidden in straw. But the myth grew larger than the mechanism, because the truth turned out to be almost more interesting than the legend. Venice did not lose its monopoly to a knife in a Parisian alley. It lost it to something far quieter and far more permanent. French workshops, once they had enough Murano expertise transplanted onto French soil, simply began producing mirror glass of their own at scale on French terms. The most famous proof of that victory still stands today. Between 1678 and 1684, architect Jules Hardouin Mansart oversaw construction of the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, the Galerie des Glaciers, commonly described as containing 357 mirrors arranged across 17 arched panels, facing 17 windows overlooking the palace gardens. Visitors today still describe the way afternoon light moves through that room, the smell of aged gilding and old stone, the way footsteps echo off marble floors, and how the mirrored panels seem to double the light of the chandeliers until the whole gallery glows like the inside of a jewel. It was, quite deliberately, a message to the rest of Europe. France no longer needed to beg Venice for the privilege of seeing itself. But even Versailles' mirrors, dazzling as they were, still relied on an old and dangerous method, backing glass with an amalgam of tin and toxic mercury, a process that had barely changed since Murano's earliest days, and that slowly poisoned the artisans who worked with it, a fact acknowledged in later industrial health studies of mirror manufacturing. The mirror that made kings glow with pride was, quietly, killing the workers who built it. That changes in 1835, when German chemist Justus von Liebig published a process for coating glass with a thin layer of silver using a chemical reaction involving silver nitrate, no mercury required. This single laboratory breakthrough did something no Venetian guild law or French royal decree ever could. It made mirrors safe to produce, cheap to scale, and, for the first time in human history, affordable enough for an ordinary household to own one. The object that had once been a symbol of absolute royal power became, within a few decades, a fixture above nearly every wash basin in Europe and America. This is the resolution the whole story has been building toward. Venice guarded its glass with island prisons and legal threats. France pursued it with royal money and quiet defections. But the true ending of the mirror's monopoly came from open publication of a chemical formula, knowledge shared rather than hoarded. The company Colbert founded in 1665, after several mergers and name changes, survives today as Saint-Gobain, still one of the world's oldest continuously operating industrial companies, and still, among many other things, a major glass manufacturer. The consequences of that shift reach directly into your life today, in ways you likely never trace back to a Venetian island or a German chemistry lab. The rearview mirror in your car, the compact mirror in a bag, the two-way mirror behind a police interrogation room wall, the polished mirrors inside the James Webb Space Telescope, launched in 2021, made of 18 gold-coated beryllium segments engineered to capture starlight from the edge of the observable universe. All of them descend from that same 19th century breakthrough that made reflective glass something science and industry could shape without royal permission. There is even a strange psychological legacy still being studied. In 1970, American psychologist Gordon Gallup Jr. developed what became known as the mirror test, marking an animal's forehead and observing whether it reaches to touch its own face rather than the reflection, used ever since as a benchmark for self-recognition in chimpanzees, elephants, dolphins, and human toddlers. The simple act of understanding that reflection is me turns out to be one of the more reliable markers scientists use to study self-awareness across species. A tool once feared as dangerous enough to smuggle in straw crates became a tool for measuring the boundary of consciousness itself. And the old superstitions never quite let go either. Legend has it, as folklorists tracing the origin of the belief that breaking a mirror brings 7 years of bad luck point to ancient Roman ideas that mirrors captured a piece of the soul, and that the soul's body renewed itself on a 7-year cycle, meaning a shattered reflection meant a wounded soul that would take exactly that long to heal. It is folklore, not fact, but it has survived roughly 2,000 years, passed down long after most people forgot why they still hesitate just slightly when a mirror cracks. Here is why any of this still matters beyond the trivia. Every time you glance at a mirror without thinking about it, you are using an object that was once so valuable it justified state secrecy, royal espionage, and quite possibly real bloodshed, before science quietly did what no army or law ever could and gave it away to everyone. The most ordinary objects in our homes often carry the most extraordinary histories of who was allowed to have them and who was not. So, when you strip away the legend, what remains is still remarkable enough on its own. A Neolithic village polishing volcanic rock to see a face for the first time, an island prison guarding a formula worth more than paintings, a king building an entire hall of glass just to prove a point to Venice, and a quiet German laboratory doing more to democratize the mirror than any spy or soldier ever managed. The next time you catch your own reflection, in a bathroom mirror, a phone screen, a shop window at dusk, what do you think that fugitive glassmaker in the French fog would have thought, knowing that the thing he risked his life smuggling would one day hang, ordinary and unguarded, in the home of almost anyone on Earth? And what does it say about us? That for most of history, simply seeing your own face clearly was a privilege only the powerful could afford. Main sources for this story include records and studies from the Corning Museum of Glass, the Palace of Versailles' own historical archives on the Galerie des Glaces, and the work of historians of Venetian glassmaking such as those published through the Journal of Glass Studies. The full list is in the description.